Negotiating is one of the dark arts, isn't it? The problem for most of us is that we usually spend very little of our time actually doing any serious negotiations in business. The majority of the time, people agree to what we are proposing, or they ask us for relatively minor modifications to our offer, and we basically accommodate them. Hardcore negotiations are few and far between in everyday business for most people. Certain industries and occupations like procurement officers and litigation lawyers will certainly have a higher preoccupation with negotiating with others, but generally speaking, most of us are not in that category. So we have a large group of rank amateurs negotiating with their equally unskilled counterparts. Let's pull the velvet curtain back on this dark art and see if we can't shine a bit of light on what we can be doing to be better prepared. Makes sense, doesn't it? Welcome back to this weekly edition every Tuesday of the Cutting Edge Japan Business Show. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Story, President of Dale Carnegie Training Japan and the best-selling author of Japan Sales Mastery. We are bringing the show to you from our High Performance Center in Akasaka in Minato-ku, the business center of Tokyo. Why the cutting edge? In this show, we are looking at the critical areas for success in business in Japan. We want to help advance everyone's thinking so that we are at the forefront, at the cutting edge of how to flourish here in this market. Before we get into this week's topic, here is what caught my attention lately. The Japanese Association for Sex Education says that Japan's current university student dating experience statistic of 70% is the lowest since surveys began more than 40 years ago. That, by the way, was when I got here as a student, so my timing was obviously good. Anyway, today, over 30% of male and female students say they don't want to go out with anyone at the moment. Male students with sexual experience stood at 47%, while the number for female students was 37%. The number of junior high school students with dating experience hit a record high of 27% for males and 29% for females. Among high school students, less than 20% said they had sexual experience. In other news, in the 2018 survey by the Institute for Management Development, Japan came in 29th place among 63 countries as a preferred work destination for foreign highly skilled workers. This is up 2 places from the previous year. South Korea, however, was 33rd and China was 39th. Japan ranked almost at the bottom at 62nd place for the international experience of its senior corporate officials. Switzerland topped the list, followed by Denmark and Norway. Finally, Japanese prefer to spend more time with their families and less time in office meetings and working late compared to 30 years ago. The Citizen Watch Company survey found 40 minutes for a meeting was considered just about right. This meeting length was around 80 minutes when the survey was conducted in 1989. Today, people prefer spending less time wining and dining clients. The average monthly overtime has decreased to 12 hours and 39 minutes from nearly 16 hours. Also, daily family time has grown from 11 minutes a day to 1 hour and 49 minutes. 11 minutes a day. That's pretty small. This is episode number 68, and we are talking about negotiations. What is your preferred process? それでは行きましょう. So let's get going. Winning is not a sometime thing. You don't do things right once in a while, you do them right all of the time. This is a great quote from the famous American football coach, Vince Lombardi, and we can apply this idea directly to negotiations. Any business undertaking does better when there is a structure, a process that is capable of creating consistent outcomes. As negotiators, if we don't manage the process, we risk becoming passive, reactive spectators to events as they randomly unfold. Purposeful behaviour is the key to influencing win-win outcomes. There are many tactics, strategies, feints, bombast, illusions, delusions, egomania, tricks and skullduggery associated with negotiating. Our recommendation is to play the long game. Don't win the battle to lose the final outcome. We are looking for a sustained business career, and that means our reputation in the market is like gold. We should never throw that tremendous trust asset away for a few bucks more, especially when we're operating here in Japan. Trust is hard to build and easy to squander in this country. We will sometimes be involved in one-off transactional deals where the likelihood of ever dealing with that organisation again is probably going to be close to rare to remote. The temptation is to suspend our usual behaviour, normally based on a long-term view, and go for the jugular to squeeze every last penny out of the other side. Yes, we may never deal with them again, but we will deal in the market. Our good name is too valuable to drag it into the mud. Be fair, be consistent, and be aware of how the rest of the market will perceive you. A businessman I know here is very sharp, razor sharp. He has no hesitation to win over others in deals and at any cost. He negotiates hard until he's squeezed every last drop out of the deal in his favour. In the process, he has created a lot of disgruntled enemies. Potential business partners are now wary of him because Google levels out the playing field through its search functions, and his name is mud online. Remember, world travels fast in Japan, and companies are skeptical enough about foreigners anyway, so be even more vigilant about protecting your good name. Always fair is always fair, whether a transactional one-night stand or otherwise. Being a known entity gives others confidence to deal with you. We're trying to reduce risk and look for people we can trust. Japan is a highly risk-averse culture and business environment, and they always prefer the devil they know to the angel they don't. The constant switching during negotiations of good guy, bad guy routine is not adding to any consistency of reputation. Being the good guy is a much better place to be, so don't get sucked into bad behaviour by bad people. There's always another deal and another partner. Part of being consistent is value-driven, and another big component is how we organise ourselves for the negotiation. We may not do what many would consider a lot of negotiations in a year, depending on our business. If we have a standardised routine, we don't have to worry about what to do or forgetting what worked well in the past. We can go straight to the basics and ensure we have a better performance each time. There are 4 stages of the negotiation we should be prepared for. Number 1, analysis. We need to identify possible alternatives available to us in reaching an agreement. There are many levers we can pull in negotiating an agreement, and finding added value through those levers requires clarity around the full picture of what we are trying to achieve. This is an advantage in Japan because the thought processes here can be very linear. Thinking out of the box is not present anywhere in the formal or company education systems. We need to see the negotiation from the point of view of our counterparty. For this, we need information and perspective before we even get to the negotiating table. What position are they likely to take? What interests do they have? What forces are impacting them at the moment or will in the near future? Getting good information and intelligence is that bit harder in Japan, but if you have a good network that can help you, that's going to be very beneficial. That'll short-circuit a lot of the research process problems. We need to reframe the conversation to avoid confrontation. This means we are looking for words and deeds that speak to a win-win outcome. We have a positive, forward-looking approach to the joint solution of issues, which are making it hard for the other side to agree to what we are proposing. Slamming tabletops, screaming tantrums, abusive name-calling, throwing inanimate objects are not a feature in Japanese society and has no place here during negotiations. Decorum, harmony, respect, face-saving, politeness, discipline are all valued and appreciated. Presentation is number 2. We should rehearse the other side's presentation as well as our own. By actually doing a dry run of their presentation as we imagine it, we throw up insights and ideas which are very helpful for ourselves. We tend to inhabit our own little bubble of what is important or pressing for us. A good practice is to switch perspectives before we get into the negotiating room and get to the negotiating table. For our presentation, we should frame it in the language of the interests and needs of the counterparty. Talking about what we want doesn't move us toward an agreement. Speaking their language, contemplating solutions to their issues positions us on the same side of the negotiating table and leads to better outcomes, much faster than otherwise. When we present, we should be looking for areas where we can provide added value to the other party through our suggested solutions. This makes it easier for them to agree because the takeout is better or larger than they had considered. Feeling that your negotiating partner is trying to help builds a great degree of trust. With trust established, flexibility and compromise come more speedily and much easier. Bargaining, number 3. We must clearly fix our BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement, at the start. This is our fallback or even walk-away position. It should be realistic and as close to the ideal outcome as we can manage. If we feel negotiating tactics are being used on us, we can just respond by suggesting an alternate solution rather than getting emotional and reacting. How do we do that? Find out more when we come back from the break. If you want to sell more and do it more easily, do the Sales Advantage course. If you can't build trust, no sale. Can't design excellent questions to understand the client's needs? No sale. Can't present the solution convincingly? No sale. Can't handle objections properly? No sale. Can't close? No sale. Master the sales process by doing the Sales Advantage course now in either Japanese or English. The bestseller, Japan Sales Mastery, is the new Bible of selling in Japan. To sell to Japanese buyers, you need to create long-term partner-level trust, fully understand Japanese buyers' real needs, convince buyers with your solutions, overcome their hesitation, fear and doubt, know how to ask for the order, ensure repeat orders. This book is the product of 30 plus years in the trenches selling in Japan. Order Japan Sales Mastery now. Welcome back. We should always be prepared to take a break from the negotiating process if we feel we are becoming too emotional. The object of the other side may be to rile us and trick us into making an error of judgment. We may take umbrage at what is being attempted, but rather than let the bile well up in our bodies, take a break, come back fully refreshed. Come back fully focused on what we are trying to achieve and reacquainted with the game plan we want to follow. In our presentation, we have tried to make it easy to agree to our proposal and hard to disagree. We shouldn't make the other party work too hard to reach an agreement. By being flexible and fair, we can smooth their path to acceptance. If they are being grossly unfair, we just go straight to our BATNA and avoid further stress. It is hard to make a good deal with bad guys. And why would we want to work with bad guys in the first place? Life is short. If it is time sensitive, that forms pressure on us. And sometimes we are rushing to do the deal because we fear future loss. Despite that, stick to the game plan and never give any indication that you feel any pressure whatsoever to do this deal. Keep reminding yourself there are always other partners, probably better partners and other better deals on the horizon. Number 4, agreement. We should make certain we specify all points that are agreed. Things which need to be fixed at the point of signing should not be left floating around. This is the time to fix them, so that there are no disputes about the finer points later. We need to get the details down in writing. Each side needs to be comfortable with the document and clear about what is covered and not covered. Tricky, ambiguous language to reinterpret in court later is not needed. There will be milestones for execution of the agreement, and these need to be specified. There will be a schedule for fulfillment of the agreement, and this needs to be detailed in scope. The execution piece is usually when problems arise, as more parties on both sides who are affected by the agreement become aware of the ramifications of what was agreed and may resist the agreement being completed. A signed agreement in Japan is a lot more flexible than in the West. The Japanese view is that while there is goodwill on the part of each side and the conditions for success still apply, then the deal makes sense. If that is no longer the case, or if the situation has changed substantially since the agreement, well, then the deal doesn't make sense anymore and should be voluntarily terminated. In these cases, they will simply abrogate whatever was signed. In a Western legalistic system, this would be straight to court for breach of contract, and the ongoing relationship potential would be ended right there. From a Japanese viewpoint, the relationship is the key point, and the one deal is just the one deal. They want to keep the relationship, but don't want to suffer under the terms of the agreement if the situation has changed so much that it is no longer working for them. The deal ends, but the door is open to future deals. Your reputation in the market remains high because you are flexible and sincere. Legalistic solutions are seen as selfish, unfair, and relationship ending. Does everyone in Japan play by these quid pro quo rules? No, of course not. Stupidity, selfishness, xenophobia, short-term thinking, nastiness, bad behavior, and greed know no national boundaries. You will meet evil business people in Japan, just like everywhere else in the world. Are they as flexible with you as they expect you to be with them? Not necessarily. Being a foreigner in Japan means you are automatically outside the cultural and behavioural norms and don't necessarily have to be treated as other partners who are Japanese. Expendable is the idea in some cases. It really depends on the people you are dealing with, as it does everywhere in the world. One thing about Japan, though, everyone is very good at keeping well-maintained records about who you can't trust and who you should never deal with. They share this information amongst themselves and their circles. You don't want to be on that list. being difficult, narrow, legalistic, inflexible, insincere, untrustworthy is how they see our inability to let them off the hook for what is written down in the document. Cases do go to court here and most often are settled out of court before a judgment is handed down. The system actually prefers that the judicial system doesn't have to make a judgment, hence the push by the judges for an out-of-court settlement. Japanese companies have no problem being litigious when operating in Western countries, however, because they have found that their homegrown approach won't fly. Negotiations in Japan will have their own flavour, and we have to be cognizant of the different expectations which apply. Regardless, we do better when we have a framework to guide us, and this simple 4-step process will assist us in preparing for the discussion with the counterparty. We don't need to complicate things, but we do need to have a structure to help us break down the complications into bite-sized pieces we can tackle when they arise. The Cutting Edge Japan Business Show is here to help you succeed in Japan. Subscribe on YouTube, share it with your family, friends, and colleagues. Become a regular. Thank you for watching this episode, and remember to hit the subscribe button. Our website details are on screen now, enjapan.dale@carnegie.com. Awesome value, so check it out. In episode 69, we were talking about nice or nasty bosses. Find out more about that next week. So, yoroshiku onegai itashimasu. Please join me in the next episode of the Cutting Edge Japan Business Show. We are here to help you, and we have only one direction in mind for you and your business, and that is up.